Hey guys, this is Kyle from the editing room. Just quick disclaimer, the video quality doesn't look great in this one, so I apologize for that. I'm learning some new things in school, tried utilizing them in this video, and the video picture doesn't look great. Hopefully it looks better in this preview here, but yeah, apologies for that. But, you know, we're going to be breaking down all of the Bengals offseason moves leading up to the draft in this one, and it's going to be basically the companion video to the draft video, so that's what we're doing today. Welcome to the jungle, everyone. I'm Kyle Phelps, and I am ready to get hurt again. As I'm sure y'all gathered from the title today, we're going to be breaking down the major points of the Bengals 2024 offseason today. But before we dive into that, I'd just like to ask that you like the video and subscribe to the channel if you're enjoying the content. It really helps my channel grow, and it helps you know when all of my content comes out, because lately that's probably the only way that you're probably gonna know. Anyway, quick disclaimer, I'm currently in England, like right now. As you're watching this, I am in England, unless you're watching this like 3 weeks in the future, like, you know, a month or two or whatever in the future. I'm in England on a study abroad that I'm doing this summer for all of May. So I produced this video a little bit ahead of time so that we could get some content out and we could at least try to get back to some semblance of consistency. But this is intended to be released while I'm on my trip, so if they sign anyone between right now and when, you know, like as I'm recording and when this video actually gets released in like a couple of weeks or so, then I apologize for not getting to that one, but here we are. We're going to talk about things as they were happening as of May 1st. So probably the biggest move of free agency this year was a negative one. They let DJ Reader walk and he joined the Lions. Now, I will say I'm not as devastated as this move that a lot of people were because of DJ Reader's injury history, and that was kind of concerning me. Like, the thing is, he only played 44 of the 67 games that he was here for. And, I mean, that's not terrible necessarily, but I think it's okay that they didn't necessarily want to pay that guy $22 million a year when the drop-off behind him is so intense, and you just don't know how much he's actually going to play. So all things considered, I'll give this move a C- because I don't think it's as bad as it seems, but it still sucks, you know? Other than DJ, they lost Cheeto Awuzie, and as great as he was at one time, like Bengals fans loved when he first came here and he was like, you know, tearing it up as a cornerback. I just don't think that in 2023 he was the same player that he used to be. So I'll give this one a B. Like, you know, if they can actually upgrade the cornerback position, Cheeto was a liability last year, so like I said, B. They lost Jonah Williams too, which I don't think anyone really shed a tear for after the way that his last couple of seasons have gone, so that one's a B+. They lost Nick Scott, A+. Good fucking riddance. I hated Nick Scott. I liked the signing enough when we got him, but he was awful here, so good riddance. Go away, Nick Scott. And then Stanley Morgan and Mitchell Wilcox, they also lost as well, which I'm not going to grade those because they were special teams back of the roster guys, and unless I'm going to start weighting grades, it just feels wrong to have the loss of those guys really impact everything else that the Bengals did. Also, they traded Joe Mixon away, which I was not able to get to because of everything that was going on. So I'll get to it now. That was extremely sad. I was extremely sad. It was very unfortunate that it was time to move on from Joe Mixon, but it was time. It was probably the best move for everyone involved. I'll give this move a B because I feel like they probably could have gotten more than a 7th round pick for him, but they also were like one step away from just totally cutting him and getting nothing. So they found a way not to do that, and I appreciate that. So, you know, unfortunately, the Joe Mixon era is over, but, you know, I'm going to have to... As you can see, I've got his poster up here. I'm gonna have to find a new poster to put up at least for the show, or maybe not. I don't know. Joe Mixon's kind of a Bengals legend. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But anyway, point being, I'm gonna miss Joe Mixon. Oh shit, that looked terrible. Anyway, point being, I'm going to miss Joe Mixon. But you know, it is what it is. It needed to happen. So those were the subtractive moves. But the additive ones, they did some interesting stuff. They brought in stud pass rushing defensive tackle Sheldon Rankins, a high-quality free agent safety in Geno Stone, a solid, well-rounded running back in Zach Moss to kind of bridge that Joe Mixon gap, and then a great pass-catching tight end in Mike Gesicki. They also brought in a short-term answer at right tackle in Trent Brown, and after the draft, I don't think he's going to be much more than a short-term answer, but it's a pretty solid short-term answer. And my favorite move, my absolute favorite move of the offseason, and this is from a personal standpoint, this is not from an analysis standpoint, it's purely from like this is how I feel, and it's my show, so I'm going to be a little biased to your perspective. They brought back Von Bell! Huge! Absolutely huge move from my perspective. That's my favorite player, and I can justify getting his jersey again. Not that I couldn't have justified it before, but it's just like it felt like he was only here on the team for like 4 years, so is that really a guy I want to spend like, you know, my jersey stash on? But now that he's back, yes, I in fact can. So that will be my next jersey purchase. Bringing in Sheldon Rankins, I'll give that one a B. He's a good player. I don't know. They paid him more than the Lions paid DJ Reader, and I think Reader's skill set works better with what this team needs. You know, I know I talked a lot about DJ Reader's injury situation, but we already have BJ Hill. We didn't really need a Sheldon Rankins, but I mean, maybe he could make a good impact. I don't know. Geno Stone was a solid B+ though, partially because he pushed Dax Hill to a new position that I think Dax Hill will really thrive in. I'll talk about that in a bit, but also, you know, I think the Bengals needed to stabilize their safety position out of the production after the production they got last year. Trent Brown, that pickup, I'll give an A- because, you know, more so at the time. At the time, it was a really good pickup because Trent Brown is a really solid player who can kind of play either side for you. And he's not going to, like, you know, be like, you know, a guaranteed Pro Bowl type of right tackle, and he's probably not only going to be here for a couple of years, but considering they also got Amarius Mims, I'm down with this move. I'll give the Trent Brown move an A-, partially because they're not paying him like, you know, end of the world type money, you know. And then Von Bell, I'm giving a quadruple, a triple duplex mega plus, because he's my favorite player, and fuck you, it's my show. In reality, though, it's actually a B move. They barely paid him anything, partially because the Panthers are still paying him for that massive contract they gave him, which is a savvy as hell move. I just hope that Von Bell is the backup, because as much as I love Von Bell, I really felt like Jordan Battle showed a lot of promise last year, and I don't want Von Bell coming in to kind of stunt Jordan Battle's growth. Because, you know, Jordan Battle is the future, and Von Bell is the past. Like, you know, he's still a very good player. I just, you know, I hope we still continue on the trajectory of developing Jordan Battle rather than going back to Von Bell, is basically what I'm saying. But great locker room presence, though, I think, for the team. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the Dax Hill thing. So they're talking about moving Dax Hill to outside corner, but I think it would be awesome personally if they could move him into a Trey Flowers type role where he can fill in as, you know, an outside corner if need be, but his main contributing factor is to kind of play that nickel slot role and cover tight ends, which Dax Hill was already good at last year. If the Bengals can just get him to play with a little bit more oomph and tackle a little bit more aggressively, I think that this could solve a problem that has plagued the Bengals for decades. In fact, speaking of Trey Flowers, the period that he was on the team is the only time that I can really think of when the Bengals were actually any good at covering tight ends. And that just happened to be the year they went to the Super Bowl, by the way. So yeah, moving Dax to cornerback is a sneaky underrated move that I think addresses one of the, you know, underrated needs that they had going into this offseason. And so for me, that's an A+ move if it works out in the long run. But it can't end up going any lower than a B- if it doesn't work out, because he kind of already didn't work out at safety. Alright, so yeah, there's my thoughts on everything other than the draft this offseason. Adding up all my grades, it averages out to about a B overall. It was a decent offseason, I think, but I also think that there were some moves that they left on the table, like extending T. Higgins, not pissing off Trey Hendrickson. That would have been nice. I know that I didn't grade those, but that's part of my justification there. Then again, you know, there's wisdom and understanding that, you know, as guys like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase get these new contracts, you're going to have to be really careful with who you're paying $20 million contracts to. So as far as the whole Trey Hendrickson situation goes, I won't spend a whole lot of time on this, right? Because I already went over it in a live stream. But to me, this trade request just, it's not really that big of a deal, you know? Like, I mean, it's a stain on the offseason. It's ugly, but it's not the end of the world either, you know? You drafted Myles Murphy in the first round last year, and I know it was a little bit of slow working with him, but he looked pretty good at the end of the year. And then you got Joseph Osai back there, too. I mean, he could still end up taking a job over. So Trey Hendrickson might end up being one of those guys that the Bengals decide to move on from in the future due to salary cap issues. In fact, I think that's exactly what his problem is, you know? He used to play in the cap hell version of the New Orleans Saints, so he knows what it's like when you've got a bunch of great players getting cut left and right because of those salary cap issues. He knows the Bengals have a ton of young edge talent that's sitting behind him who will be ready to replace him when his contract just becomes too much of a burden for the team. I get it, though. It sucks being the top dog and knowing in the back of your mind that age comes for us all. Not that age has come for Trey Hendrickson, and who knows when it's going to come for him. You know, it could be a long time. Hopefully the Bengals don't get Andrew Whitworth here. But I do think that that's kind of what's going on, and I can understand why Trey Hendrickson might feel like he wants more security because of that. Unfortunately for him, he's locked up through 2025. He isn't going to retire. I know he's not going to retire. Trey Hendrickson knows he's not going to retire. And the Bengals could keep him past 2025 if they need to with the franchise tag. And frankly, they could franchise tag him again if they feel like it's that big of a need still. So here's the thing. He could realistically be approaching 33 by the time that the Bengals are willing to come to the table with him to actually negotiate a new contract. And by then, I think the Bengals' succession plan will be obvious. It'll probably be worked into the next contract negotiation. But honestly, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. We'll see when the season gets here. But I appreciate all y'all watching, and especially those of you who subscribe and continue watching the show. Until next time, y'all can always catch more of what I do at Kyle Phelps 92 on X, Facebook.com/The Phelps, the Battle of Ohio podcast, and right here if you subscribe. So kind of like the draft video, nobody really knows how good or bad these moves are going to be until it's been about 5 to 10 years down the line anyway. But we got to judge them somehow, and I think grades are the most digestible way to do it. So I'll leave y'all, as always, with a hoo-day!